A wonderful silent movie classic, almost 100 years old. It's Harold Lloyd in Why Worry. Let me tell you why I think you, your kids, other kids, all kinds of people would still like Why Worry. Coming up next. If you haven't heard of Why Worry, it's basically a 1920s Pixar movie. It's a wonderful family movie. If you can get a number of kids together or people who will cackle at basic gags, you will thoroughly enjoy this movie. I don't think people should watch it by themselves in the privacy of their home. It won't work as well. But watch it with a number of people. It really is a magical movie. The reason it's magical, it's got a gentle giant. It's got the giant fighting revolutionaries. It's got sort of a brave Goofus or Doofus played by Harold Lloyd, an American named Harold Van Pelham, who's at once geeky and nerdy looking, but also then very brave in the movie. And if you look at the setup of this movie and the bad guy, the villain in it, for example, pretty much everything here is stock good guy versus bad guy stuff in sort of a slapstick humoristic movie that is the setup for, of course, cartoons that come later, Looney Tunes. But I'm telling you, Pixar, they of course are watching these silent classics and emulating them, especially for classic Pixar movies like WALL-E or Toy Story, for example. The movie is a fairy tale in a sense. Now, it's based on reality. I'm going to criticize it in just a little bit, but the premise is there's an island, Paradiso, that this American hypochondriac, who's a millionaire, Harold Van Pelham, goes to. He's accompanied by his nurse. He needs to take a pill about every 2 seconds in order to quell his beating heart. He's worried about all kinds of diseases, so he's going to this tropical island to relax, to get away from diseases and other kinds of pressures of the modern world. Well, little does he know, this is not a vacation spot anymore. It's turned into a revolutionary hellhole with an American, actually, Jim Blake, stirring up the revolutionaries and causing civil and political unrest on this island. Sort of a classic movie setup where the Goofus Doofus does not know what he's walking into, and even when he's in the middle of a revolution, he doesn't even know a revolution is going on. Nevertheless, he gets involved in it, he fights back, and he makes friends with a gentle giant. The movie's promotional material, Why Worry's promotional material, had this giant as 8'9", the giant John Austin, who is actually 7'2", but looks absolutely enormous. And there's all kinds of giant jokes in this movie, as Harold Van Pelham, the Harold Lloyd character, does not measure up to the stature in any way, and at one point tries to pull a tooth out of this giant's mouth and has a very hard time doing so. Well, this WALL-E-like figure and this Iron Giant-like figure pair up in order to fight the revolution inadvertently on this island of Paradiso, and I suppose settle affairs. Also, the boy needs to win over the girl. The hero needs to save the princess with the help of a giant. I'm saying all this because it does have these fairy tale-like qualities. Oh, and where should you watch this? The Criterion Channel. They have the best version of this in 2K with a great score by Robert Israel. There is no good disc or free version of this on the internet that I've found. Hopefully Criterion will release after this video at some point a real restored crisp version of this movie, because it looks absolutely gorgeous on a big screen with a good projection. The movie is very funny, great slapstick, and I like Harold Lloyd. His characters are often different from the ordinary silent movie doofuses who, screw up, they're ignorant, they're naive, and the whole movie is about their naivete. In this case, the hero, the hypochondriac, is actually better than he thinks. He's actually tougher, braver, stronger than he thinks. And he kind of comes to find that out, or actually what he really finds out is that he is in love, actually should have other loves besides himself. His health is his narcissistic focus, and he needs to think about other things, including the nurse who loves him. Now, besides the entertaining sort of classic fairy tale setup that I think Homer or Aesop could have written this movie and placed it in a magical fairyland, this movie also has interesting American political resonances. And you have to ask this question, is this just a comedy that's using ideas from the time, or is this more maybe nefarious in what it says? Because the political setup is basically this: an American idiot goes down to a South American country, and by his own will, even against his own will, in a sense he lacks power completely, and yet he's completely powerful over these ridiculous revolutionaries, with obviously the help of the giant, that he is able to defeat the revolution and restore order to Paradiso. And this American Yankee type has or enlists the local rural people, figured by the giant here, to order to stop the revolution and to set up, although this isn't quite in the movie, but to set up a government that's beneficial and friendly towards maybe U.S. political interests. Of course, the movie does say, well, the U.S. is meddling in foreign affairs here in Paradiso with this Jim Blake character, who's basically trying to, talk to banks and bribe them, as it were. So there's multiple U.S. interests in Latin America. Now, what's interesting here is, one, the movie is in a jingoistic era for film. There's a lot of nationalistic themes, particularly U.S. themes, obviously, in Hollywood movies at this time. Very patriotic moment in film. But also when you look at the history of U.S. involvement and meddling in Central America, South America, over the last 100 years, but this movie is spot on in just at least describing how that could work, or the so-called U.S. invasion of, and the thought of, in this movie, Paradiso being just a tourist enterprise where the Harold Van Pelham millionaire character can go rest and reside. There is zero socio-economic activity in this place. There's no political activity. Basically, this island exists in order to please the millionaire class in this movie. And so you think about it that way, like, oh, this is a little maybe nefarious in the way it constructs the U.S. versus South American dynamic. I'm only bringing that up because that is the way it will be read in the U.S. Academy, especially those interested in political affairs in the 20th century. There's no doubt about it. So I just am bringing it up for you to chew on. I do think it could be that the fairy tale aspect overrules the socio-political, and in 200 years, when people are watching this movie, they will have no earthly clue about U.S. versus South American interests, but they will be interested in the way that the hero and the giant work together to save the princess. This movie uses basic archetypal stuff, and that may be why it could last for a long while. I find Harold Lloyd very fun. I think his facial expressions, his acting is absolutely great. I actually like him a little bit better than Buster Keaton and a lot better than Charlie Chaplin, although, of course, Chaplin was the movie star at this time. But to me, I'm a little bit more on the Harold Lloyd side of things, and that's maybe one reason why I appreciate this movie. I like his characters, I like his clothes, I like his style, and I like his sort of physical humor and the way he moves about the screen. And that's one of the attractions of this movie. And then paired with this John Austin giant type is really great. I wish they would have worked together more. I wish this sort of contrasting character, this short Yankee doofus with glasses versus this very tall, dirty rural giant. Those two kind of contrasts work together. Of course, you look at something like The Princess Bride, and that's exactly what that movie uses, those contrasts, although not with the glasses-like character, but I don't see why there's no more height differences in movie history where the two characters who have two wildly different heights and different attributes don't work together. It should work for a fantasy quest-like movie. So I think this could be interesting, or a superhero movie, more of these kinds of wild contrasts between characters and sort of a buddy working together movie where they defeat the bad guys. Could be a lot of fun for any kind of movie maker or video maker. What do you think of Why Worry? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.